This video was made possible by my patrons on Patreon.
Hello there, I'm Nemo, and isn't taxidermy a weird concept? From the Greek taxis and derma, taxidermy means the arrangement of the skin. It is the art of removing the skin of a dead animal and mounting it on an artificial body-shaped frame in order to preserve its shape and external features for all
eternity.
It is a bit bizarre when you think about it. So why is taxidermy important? What are the limitations of the technique? And most importantly, can we perform taxidermy on a whole blue whale? Yeah, you know, that mammal that is the largest animal that have ever existed on Earth. Well, in order to answer all those questions, we need to go to a very special place. Gothenburg, Sweden. Here we are at the Gothenburg Natural History Museum. Come with me, let's go inside. Taxidermy is based on two fundamental principles: the technical aspect of mounting the skin on a frame, but also recreating the illusion of life. And that is why old preservation techniques, such as Egyptian mummification, cannot really be considered taxidermy. I mean, this doesn't look very alive. The oldest known example of taxidermy dates back to the 16th century. It is a crocodile hanging on the ceiling of a church in the small town of Nossa in Italy. But why do we do taxidermy in the first place? Well, taxidermy has been and is still being used for art, decoration, pet memorials, and hunting trophies. In these specific cases, the actual usefulness of taxidermy is quite debatable, but its application to the field of evolution, conservation, and even awareness has a scientific value that goes beyond art, emotions, and the fragile human ego. Today, when 3D scanning is a thing, taxidermy is a bit less relevant, but at the time, taxidermy was the best way of preserving the morphological features of an animal. And by doing so, not only we are preserving its physical attributes, we can also extract chemical and molecular information like markers of past environmental changes or simply DNA. But what are the physical limitations of taxidermy? Well, from a morphological point of view, in order to perform taxidermy as we described it before, you will need an animal with skin, but also an inner support structure that you will replicate with your frame. Because of this, the range of animals you can use for taxidermy is essentially limited to animals with a skeleton, aka vertebrates. The size of the animal is also crucial. Extremely small mammals like the pygmy shrews, for example, are very hard to handle because of their size. Also, their skin can be extremely fragile. On the other hand of the spectrum, large animals like, you guessed it, blue whales, represent a gargantuan amount of work, an almost unachievable challenge even with today's techniques and equipment. But over 150 years ago, someone did it. Let's move to another room so I can tell you a story. In 1865, two local fishermen found a 16-meter-long blue whale stranded on a beach at the south of Gothenburg. Both men thought that the best idea was to kill the monstrous beast. Why? Well, humans. But killing a whale is no simple feat. It took them 2 days. And even though the methods the fishermen used were incredibly barbaric, the wounds they caused were mostly superficial for such a big animal. The real causes of death being probably asphyxiation and hyperthermia due to the fact that the animal was partially out of the water. August Wilhelm Malm, curator of the Gothenburg Natural History Museum, heard about the whale and decided to buy it in order to preserve every part of it for science. And all I can say is that he did a pretty good job. It took 3 steamboats and 2 coal barges to move the carcass of the animal to the dockland area of Gothenburg. Why moving it there? Well, Malm was a control freak and he really wanted to work in a cleaner environment and also far away from visitors that would take souvenirs from the whale's body. The biggest challenge with working with such big animals is obviously the size, because the larger the animal, the longer time it takes, and time is your enemy while handling living tissues. Because of putrefaction, we lose healthy tissues. The smell is unbearable, and the gas deforms the body, alters measurements, and also increases the risk of explosion. Yeah, because whales can literally explode. The skin was cut into big patches. Then it was treated with salt, sawdust, bull clay, and arsenic. And it took 6 months for the skin to start drying. The wooden structure is built with techniques similar to shipbuilding, and it took 30,000 zinc and copper nails to stitch the skin back together on the frame. But there was a problem, because the skin didn't fit the frame. And because of that, Malm went into a nervous breakdown for 2 weeks. Fortunately, his assistant suggested a solution: to fill the gap on the ventral side with wooden plank. Problem solved. The body is divided in 4 parts for transportations. Oh yeah, because this thing was not always here. It traveled through Germany and Sweden. This thing is so big that when the whale came back home, they had to tear down part of the wall to bring it in. Many organs were taken out and the skeleton was boiled. It now lies next to the gigantic taxidermy so that visitors can compare themselves to the size of this majestic creature. But one thing I didn't tell you, which is that this blue whale is a calf. It is a juvenile. An adult can measure twice as long as this, up to 32 meters. Here is a jawbone of an adult for comparison. Since the beginning, the mouth of the whale has been open to the public for the visitors to experience the fate of Pinocchio. But at the end of the 19th century, a couple was caught inside the whale in an embarrassing situation. And since then, the mouth of the whale is only open for special occasions like election day, because in Swedish, whale and election are written and pronounced the same way, val, typical Gothenburg's humor. The naturalist Georges Cuvier said that no family of mammals was more complicated to observe and more incompletely described than whales. Except for the Malm whale, there is no other recorded blue whale stranding in Sweden. So the Malm whale is a very unique and extraordinary specimen. And it's true that the ethics of displaying the rest of an animal who died of quite a painful death is questionable. But the Malm whale is not here to celebrate those old methods. Instead, it is here to educate us about the terrible fate of whales. Researchers estimate that human activities contributed to the death of nearly 3 million large whales during the 20th century. The blue whale is now an endangered species with less than 25,000 individuals left. So the Malm whale is a reminder to acknowledge the mistakes of our past and to learn to do better. Today, the numbers of humpback whales are recovering, and you can see more and more whales on the Swedish west coast. And I like to believe that the Malm whale's story and influence contributed, at least a little bit, to this small achievement. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you... Reginald? What is that?
My first hypothesis is that it is an interdimensional crystal, sir.
Interdimension?
Yes, sir. The atomic stability detectors you installed after the time traveler's visit registered a peak with a signature similar to the traveler themselves.
Okay, well, can you run some analysis? I'm curious to know where it comes from and how useful it can be.
Or dangerous, sir.
Well, yeah, you're right. Thank you, Reginald. I want to thank the Gothenburg Natural History Museum staff, in particular Kennet. Thank you for letting me film in your beautiful museum. I also want to thank Robin for the camera work and Sara for the precious insight in the taxidermy world. I want to thank all my patrons from Patreon. Your help is very much appreciated, and without your monthly support, I'm not even sure if this kind of video would have been possible. Also, we have a beautiful Discord community, and if you're not part of it, maybe you should consider joining. We organize live streams and game nights and contests, and it's just a beautiful place to just hang out and talk and chill. Yeah, I think that is it. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.